fixed as a piece. Instead, there was a general or counselor. There are differences between modern-day chess and chaturanga, but both can be played using the same modern-day chessboard. The rules of chaturanga vary from that of modern-day chess. In chaturanga, the soldier could move only one square as part of the initial move. However, in modern chess, we know that the pawns can move two squares in the context of the initial move. Another major variation from modern chess is the position of the pieces on the board. In chaturanga, the kings are placed diagonally opposite each other on the board, unlike being placed facing each other in modern chess. In chaturanga, the game ends when one player eliminates all the pieces of their opponent except the king. Another difference is that in chaturanga, if a stalemate is reached, the player who is stalemated is declared the winner. These are two significant variations from the modern chess. In modern-day chess, a stalemate results in a draw, and not an outright win for either player. From India, chaturanga traveled to Persia. In Persia, chaturanga was transformed into shatranj. The game underwent several changes at this point. In Persia, it became popular amongst the nobility, and soon it became an integral part of the education system. Shatranj was much more similar to modern-day chess than chaturanga was. However, there still were some differences between the two versions of the game. It was at this stage in the history of the game that the concept of tactics came into play. The position of the pieces on the board was quite similar to that of modern-day chess. However, the significant difference is the one that shatranj inherited from chaturanga. The pawn in shatranj was also allowed to move just one square in their initial move, while modern chess allows the pawn to move two squares. Another difference that was adopted from chaturanga was the fact that the game ended once a player eliminated all their opponent's pieces except the king. However, the stalemate rule was the opposite of what chaturanga rules allowed. In shatranj, the player who stalemated their opponent wins the game instead of the stalemated opponent, which was the case in chaturanga. During this period, several important players emerged. It was these players who recorded the first books on tactics and strategies. From these records rose the first archives of chess literature. These books were a testimony to the growth of chess and the experience of these players. Some of the well-known players of shatranj who emerged at this time are Asud, Al-Razi, and Rabrab. When the Arabs conquered Persia, they took shatranj to the entire Muslim world. By the end of 1000 AD, the game traveled to Europe and Russia, where it became very popular. From there, it spread to China and Japan. With these travels, several variations were introduced to the game, most of which aren't seen today. Between the 13th and 15th century, the game underwent several changes. The rules were changed and more tactics were discovered. Some of these rules are still seen in today's chess game. It was during this time that modern-day chess started taking shape. Most rules enforced during this period were to make sure that the game didn't take forever to complete, which is why pawns are allowed to move two squares instead of one. The concept of castling also came into existence during this time. It was also during this time that the queen and bishop got powers. There was a point when chess was referred to as the Mad Queen chess, because of the powers that were bestowed upon the queen. By the start of the 15th century, the game started looking more like the game we know today. This was when famous chess strategies and tactics came into play. By the 19th century, modern chess tournaments were held, and the very first World Chess Championship took place in 1886. The 20th century brought with it the establishment of the World Chess Federation, and by the 21st century, computers were being used for analysis of tournaments. Online gaming started in the 1990s. The journey of chess from its primitive form as chaturanga to the game it is today is indeed a fascinating one. Chapter 2. The Basics of Chess. The most basic thing that you are required to learn in chess is how to set the board up. The rule here is always white is right, and that means when you sit in front of the board, the bottom right square should always be white. If you are playing on a board that folds in half, you must always play across the fold as well. The setup for both the black and the white pieces is the same. The rooks or castles must go on the two corner squares on the bottom row. The knights or horses go on the squares directly adjacent to the rooks. Next are the bishops, and they stand beside the knights. Your queen must always go on the square that matches her color. You will have two squares remaining at this point,